Good evening, everybody. Calling the meeting for February 1st from Barnstable Town Council to order. We have, just as you can see, there's several empty chairs. Councilor Neary is due any minute on two wheels, about 6:15. I got stuck in some traffic in Boston. We have one individual still flying into this area. We have another individual home with COVID, and we have an individual who was exposed to COVID and just chose not to come for the betterment of society. So we appreciate that. We were just talking about you. We said good things, and you made it early. Good for you. So roll call first.
Councilors: Bloom, Burdick,
Present.
Clark, Crow,
Present.
Levesque,
Here.
Ludke, Mendez,
Here.
Neary,
Here.
Penn,
Present.
Schnepp,
Here.
Starr,
Here.
Tamash,
Here.
Turkelson.
Here.
You have 10. Thank you.
Okay.
You have quorum.
Thank you. It's my pleasure tonight to start a new experience for the town council and for the town. We have invited tonight, it's Major, you just got a promotion, Major, Greg Quilty. Greg is a Barnstable resident, retired active duty Marine, and District Director of the Department of Veteran Services, who has served all over the world, including Beirut, Lebanon, Iraq, and Kuwait. He is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have invited Major Quilty to come up with a roster of veterans from the town of Barnstable who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance before each meeting. Major, it's all yours.
Please rise, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now have a moment of silence for all those near and dear to us. We want to remember. Thank you very much. Not on the agenda tonight, but very special before we get to public comment. I have a town council proclamation, and I will come down to the podium to present it. It's a little more formal, but come up here. This is wonderful. This is a proclamation in honor of Irene Davidson on the occasion of her 100th birthday, which is tomorrow. And this is her wonderful granddaughter, Maxie Pomeroy. Irene couldn't be here tonight because she's home resting comfortably after a broken arm, maybe?
Yeah, she
Yeah.
just came home.
She came home yesterday, I think.
She came home today.
Oh, today? Oh, my gosh.
And she's moving around.
I'm sure she is. So we're going to hear a little bit about Irene. Irene Gerstein was born on February 2nd, 1924 in New Bedford, Massachusetts, the daughter of Abram and Libby Gerstein. She grew up in New Bedford and graduated from high school in 1942. She met her future husband, Sidney Davidson, who was from Wareham, Mass. Irene and Sidney were married on October 20th, 1946. It was a marriage that lasted for 59 years. He definitely predeceased her. During World War II, while her husband Sidney, a qualified marksman, was fighting in the deserts of North Africa against German advancement, Irene worked as an analyst for the Aerovox Corps. They had the defense contract with the U.S. government, and her department worked on highly sensitive and strategic information pertaining to enemy engagement. Irene and Sidney had two sons, Stanton, born in 1953, and Abbott, born in 1957. The Davidsons moved to Hyannis in 1960, where Irene became involved as a member of the Cape Cod Synagogue. She was the financial secretary for 36 years and to this day is a lifetime trustee. In 67, Irene became the office manager of Bay State Piping until her retirement in 97. Irene's strong aptitude for mathematics and sharp mind gave her the reputation of being a woman of principle who spoke her mind with integrity and honesty. I can attest to that. Irene can be very proud of her lifetime of contributions to her Cape Cod community, of her life with Sydney, and the success of her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Her love for her family, community, and faith has been spiritual and impactful. Irene has been a witness to a century of joys and tribulations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and over 60 years in the town of Barnstable. We offer our best wishes to Irene as she celebrates her 100th birthday tomorrow, February 2nd, 2024. For you.
Oh,
I'd say Mazel Tov, but
You know what I mean.
we can say Mazel Tov.
That's the fun part of this job, so thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. I know many of you have signed in. There's no order. I'm not going to call your name, so anybody with public comment, please come up, state your name, sign in if you haven't already. You have 3 minutes to make your comments. And before this starts, I just want to say we have received many emails this evening, or today, late this afternoon and this evening, about insinuating that maybe there's a vote that's going to happen at Town Council this evening in regards to Avangrid and the wind farm. And I just want to say there's absolutely no votes, taking place on that. So I just want to dispel any rumors, any myths out there. There's no votes on the agenda here at all, even in executive session. Okay? So please begin. Who wants to be first? Don't be shy. We have a taker.
I'm Dr. Emery Anderson. I live in Marston's Mills. I'm a retired fishery scientist with 55 years of experience in fisheries and marine research, both nationally and internationally. The reason I'm here tonight is to speak in support of the offshore wind projects and the need to bring that power on shore. To make my point, I want to refer back to my own scientific work, which most of it at Woods Hole. I was involved in assessing fish stocks and then providing the advice from those assessments to groups of one sort or another, regulatory bodies and governments. I did this not only in this country, but in Europe as well. For those agencies or groups that received this advice, they depended on peer-reviewed scientific advice, not fishermen's comments, although those were taken into account certainly, but it was all based on good science that was peer-reviewed. So to this point, decisions made by this town council should also be based on credible peer-reviewed science. And I'm referring specifically to decisions relative to the offshore wind projects. And that those decisions should not necessarily be based on opinions, emotions, hearsay, or what we know is sometimes questionable information. Point is, you need to know the source of the information that you're going to base your decisions on. If one goes on the internet, you can find almost anything you want. You don't always know if it's valid or not. And you have to be careful to believe everything that you find. For example, I certainly have learned that those who would profit from the continued burning of fossil fuels are generally the ones that are pushing a lot of false information about the detrimental effects of offshore wind farms and their harmful effect to the environment. No one wants things to be done that are clearly harmful to the environment and certainly not to us as humans. However, unbiased scientific investigation is clearly needed to ascertain whether or not this is the case. And it should not be ascertained based on the basis who can shout the loudest in opposition. So doing what we can even here on Cape Cod to counter and reverse the impacts of climate change brought about again by the long-term use of fossil fuel burning is really in our best interest, and it's, I feel, the right thing to do. But I say let's do it carefully and thoughtfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Pete Sampu. I reside in West Barnstable. I have a PhD in oceanography, and I teach a course about renewable energy, which of course includes wind. As was mentioned earlier, just before me, verifiable facts are essential to the field of science. And it disturbs me that misinformation, which might elicit strong emotions, can so easily be presented as facts to our citizens. An NPR segment titled "Misinformation is Stopping Renewable Energy Projects" discussed how regulations around how and whether to build utility-scale wind farms are often determined at the local level, and unfortunately, how some Facebook groups are spreading misleading, often untrue information. Sarah Mills, a renewable energy researcher at the University of Michigan, says, quote, "Local officials are not necessarily experts in energy, and so when you have people coming and stating things as facts, especially if there's nobody fact-checking everything, well, it's difficult. Local officials are very likely to be making their decisions based on what they're hearing and don't often have fact-checking associated with that. It is possible that Barnstable citizens' concerns are being based on false and or misleading information. Secondly, investigative reporting by the Washington Post found that residents in a coastal community were being steered with misinformation from outside groups, some of which had ties to fossil fuel interests, to oppose offshore wind in New Jersey. The outside groups have as a goal to derail some 31 offshore wind projects along the East Coast, which include the projects making landfall here in Barnstable. What I learned in my research on this oppositional strategy is best summed up by J. Timmons Roberts, an environmental studies and sociology professor at Brown University who has tracked campaigns across the country against offshore wind. Many local groups employ talking points that mirror those of dark money organizations opposed to renewable energy. Quote, "People really need to know where the information is coming from. It may come out of the mouths of local people, but a lot of it is being generated by the movement to stop the transition away from fossil fuels. The development of sustainable offshore wind is beneficial to our environment, to our town, and to our Earth. Let's let the best available science guide our decisions and make these decisions that we have based on science and verified facts." Thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome, and thank you for speaking.
I'm here this evening on a different subject. I understand.
Introduce yourself, please.
I am doing that. I am the chairperson for the Barnstable No Place for Hate. My name is Eileen Elias. I'm here, and first of all, congratulations to Councilors Penn and Tamash, as well as all the new and prior members of the Town Council. I'm talking to each of you in representing Barnstable No Place for Hate, which consists of 14 organizations, including a representative from the Barnstable Town Council. And I think the Town Council's attention is needed to address affordable housing, and it must become a top priority to support the Barnstable Public Schools and our largest employer, Cape Cod Healthcare. The steering group of Barnstable No Place for Hate regularly meets with both of these major organizations. And they each have told us they are having extreme difficulty in attracting, hiring, and retaining staff. This request is supported by the January 4 Cape Cod Commission draft regional housing strategy, the Housing to Protect Cape Cod, Habitat for Humanity, and the Housing Assistance Corporation. The area's increasing and high costs to rent or purchase a home are barriers to hiring staff. Prospective employees frequently cite housing costs as the reasons they turn down employment. Others decide to live with families who live on the Cape, or they themselves live off Cape, and then later move to another position. The council is asked to recognize and learn from the positive outcomes experienced by the towns of Orleans, Brewster, Dennis Yarmouth, Falmouth, and Bourne. Each recognized housing affordability as a barrier to hiring and maintaining staff for public and private positions. Each created and ensured affordable housing options to support this hiring. This has not occurred in Barnstable. The Barnstable No Place for Hate requests that the council, especially those of you who are newly elected, make access to affordable housing a top priority. Develop an action plan, implement it, and monitor it based on specified timetable in accordance with federal and state housing policies and laws. The Barnstable No Place for Hate is partnering with the organizations I earlier identified, and we are available to support this important and time-sensitive request. Also, we will continue to come back to the Town Council to ensure that this request moves forward. I thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Gary Peters. I'm a resident of Barnstable and a member of the steering committee of Save Greater Dowses Beach, which I might add has no connections to any fossil fuel industry or dark money. As you know, we hosted the Close to the Wind Summit in Hyannis last Saturday, which was a huge success. Over 300 people listened to presentations by a number of experts on the topic of offshore wind development, including numerous problems and risks to the marine environment and onshore concerns. Several of our councilors and other elected officials were there, and we appreciated that. We all know that the town council and our legal department are going to have critical decisions to make in the coming weeks and months regarding the future direction of the town with the projects Park City Wind and Commonwealth Wind. I strongly urge everyone in town government and the public to go onto YouTube and watch the recording of this summit. This was not a complaint session by a small group of uninformed citizens. A great deal of well-researched, well-referenced scientific information was presented, including research and reports from entities including the Bureau of Offshore Energy Management, the National Marine Fisheries Service, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and the Brattle Group. Cliff Carroll did another outstanding job of detailing what may be the greatest risk of all to Cape Cod and should be one of the greatest concerns to Town Council. The risk of contamination of our sole source aquifer by any accident that might occur at one of the massive substations sitting immediately above our aquifer. This would endanger the water supply to all of the Cape. I'm very confident that the information gained from a review of that summit will cast new light onto this critical issue for Town Council, much different from that provided in the past by Avangrid and other proponents of this project. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Russell Norris. I live in West Hyannisport. I am a retired Lutheran pastor serving part-time at St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Barnstable Village, where I coordinate the congregation's environmental program. Oh, and I hold a degree in electrical engineering from MIT. Scripture says that the wind blows where it chooses, and you hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. Well, we may not know where it comes from or where it goes, but we do know what the wind can do. It can generate electricity, lots of electricity. Wind power is the most readily accessible energy source we have in New England. It is clean. It is not produced by burning fossil fuels that threaten the planet. And as you all know, since early last month, Vineyard Wind has already begun generating electricity, clean electricity from the wind. It comes ashore at Covell Beach, travels under Craigville Beach Road, up Strawberry Hill Road to Hyannis, where it connects with the Cape Cod electrical grid. My question is, why is the Town Council holding an executive session tonight to discuss litigation strategies for the Park City Wind Project? The published agenda says this discussion will include various responses to Avangrid, including outright council opposition to the Park City Wind Project and its landing at Craigville Beach. If this were a new technology, something truly untried and risky, one might better understand this controversy. But the technology has been around now for more than 30 years. The very first offshore wind project in the world was built back in 1991 at Vindeby in Denmark. It was about the size of the Vineyard Wind project, about 11 turbines. Today, Europe has more than 5,400 grid-connected turbines across 12 countries, generating a total of 25 gigawatts. The electricity generated by those wind farms replaces power produced by burning coal, oil, and gas, and creates a cleaner world for all of us. Barnstable is a good place to land the Park City Wind Project. We have the infrastructure. We have the standards that have been agreed to by all sides to assure a source of safe, secure
Process 3 minutes,
energy
if you could finish
for
up, please.
generations to come.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne O'Connor. I live in Centerville. I'm a founding member of Barnstable Speaks. 4 months ago, we went to work for our fellow citizens to figure out what the heck was happening in our town. All of a sudden, our villages were under siege. They still are. Our numbers have climbed into the hundreds. Our folks are active and vocal with their opinions of Avangrid and the offshore wind projects. I learned a new phrase recently, dark money. I'd heard of it, but didn't have a clear definition in my mind. So I looked it up on Wikipedia. Funds raised for the purpose of influencing elections by nonprofit organizations that are not required to disclose the identities of their donors. It has been insinuated that our group may be taking dark money. to work against the wind farms. If it wasn't so insulting and absurd, it would be funny. Barnstable Speaks doesn't even have a bank account. We have privately funded every single element of our campaign out of our own pockets, with the exception of a local gentleman who owns a sign company. He printed the signs and donated them to our cause. I'm a 67-year-old shopkeeper. I sell penny candy. My colleagues in Barnstable Speaks and I are not, have not, and will not fight this battle with ill-begotten funds. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. Tonight, I put my package on your chair to try to save some time tonight because I know it's going to be a busy night for you. So, my name is Cliff Carroll. I'm a resident, longtime native of Barnstable here. Grew up, went through all the school systems. Also a self-employed banker, realtor, developer. In fact, Mr. Sampu, I developed the 12,000 square foot classroom over at Sturgis for you. Hearing some of these insults that we've heard in the newspaper, the Cape Cod Times, about dark money, I've been fighting wind farm in the Nantucket Sound and this one here for probably over 20 years combined, and never received a penny from anybody and spent my own hard-earned money, so it's pretty insulting. I'm going to get right to the point, though, because we have to make it quick. There are 3 pages in my handout. The first page is a document done by the state and the federal government, by the way, which shows the aquifers, well fields, aquifer protection zones, and this is all over our sole source aquifer. The square that you see drawn in the middle of the well field, an aquifer protection zone abutting Wequacket Lake, that's the 125,000 gallons of transformer oil at the Knights Inn site. Within about a half a mile in the middle, you have another square, which is the Oak Street Transformer Substation, where they're going to be increasing the oil in that transformer at the top of the aquifer to about 70,000 gallons, and I do not believe it's being built to the same standards that Vineyard Wind is under now as far as their guidelines. The big square to your left is probably one of the best-kept secrets in this town up until maybe tonight. That's a 28-acre substation designed and proposed for the fire tower on the side of the Mid-Cape Highway. Just for a reference, 28 acres is bigger than the entire Kmart Plaza. The next page, second page, it shows the mapping of these individuals. To your right, your blue circle is the Knights Inn, again, 125,000 gallons. The yellow area is the expansion of the Oak Street Transformer Substation in the well fields, and then the 28-acre Clay Farm substation. What's important about that is if this page was bigger up to the far left, but not that far, approximately half a mile, is the town's proposed backup wells for 5 million gallon per day wells at the Bridge Creek Conservation Area, because back in 2019, the town of Hyannis ran 1.8 million gallons per day short of freshwater supply. They went out, they did an exploratory well drilling. What ended up happening is the highest yielding by a 10 count, 10-fold yield, is the Bridge Creek area behind the West Barnstable Fire Department. This is only a half a mile and up gradient from that. The third page, I've been asking probably for about 6 months, is another diagram, again provided by the town's engineering contractor.
That's 3 minutes if you could finish up, please.
I'll just instantly. The map is a mapping of a predictive direction of a plume at the Barnstable Airport's spill, which is headed for Yarmouth. The federal government requires mapping. We should be doing that of our oil fields. We know exactly what the point source of the spills would be. We know what the dollar amount of the containment is. Last, I reviewed our insurance policies. We do not have any environmental insurance in hand for the Vineyard Wind project. In addition to that, we do not have the emergency plan that was supposed to be provided prior to them going operational. That's on the Independence Park Vineyard Wind project. So we're underinsured. we have not received many of the items that were part of their host agreement. Thank you very much. And again, the folks insulting the dark, making the dark money insults, it's an insult to the hardworking people of Barnstable, including yourselves. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Conley. I live in Osterville. And I won't speak very long, but I wanted to tell you why our group put together the Close to the Wind Summit this past Saturday. The impetus was a meeting I attended in Boston. Up on the stage was a panel of 3 offshore wind executives and the president of the Environmental League of Massachusetts. And I sat in the audience. They didn't expect anyone like me to be there. But I sat in the audience and I heard so much gaslighting, insulting. They said that groups like Save Greater Dowses Beach do nothing but spread misinformation. We accept dark money. Dead whales are a non-issue. Dead fisheries are a non-issue, including the very important cod fishery that will be threatened by this. I just want to say that there's so much gaslighting, maybe that's how we should light our homes from now on. But anyway, in all seriousness, I've put together a Facebook page dedicated to the Close to the Wind Summit. I am adding excerpts from all the speakers. I learned so much that day. One of the things I learned was that the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has said in at least 2 documents that all of these wind farms, if they go up, will have a negligible effect on climate change. So to me, that's the big lie. They will not help us with climate change. BOEM also said that in terms of rising sea levels, the impact will be a matter of weeks, not months, sometime out near 2060. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that on Saturday, we heard facts, we heard citations, that I heard more science that day than I've heard from Avangrid in a year and a half. So thank you. I encourage you all to take a look at what was said and the presentations. They were pretty fantastic. So thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, y'all. I'm Mary Ann from Osterville, 5 generations vacationing at Dowses Beach, probably like many of you as well. I am at Dowses pretty much every day, and I just want to say that I'm really tired of the bullying tactics that Big Wind has perpetuated on Cape Codders. And if it's so great, how come it was pushed through so secretly? Why were the meetings so tightly controlled, and why do they have so many lawyers? When big wind projects push through on our recreational land, on our beaches, our ocean, our parks, over our water supply, it poses a huge threat on so many levels to all of us. How can anyone think about putting this in a recreational area? This is the only beach we have. This is where we sit. This is where we take baby infants and put them in the ocean for the first time, where our seniors sit in the same chairs in the same spot for over 50 years. This is all we have in Osterville is Dowses Beach. Please, 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 so much new information has come out about the dangers to public health and safety and to our sea life and to our water supply. We need to start listening. The New England fisheries, the Act for Whales, Green Oceans, Save Dowses Beach, Save Our Sea Life Today, several doctors have all come out and are sounding the alarm. We need to start listening to this. Please, some of you may have voted for waivers to allow Big Wind to go through without quite understanding the inherent dangers that were in Big Wind. We urge you to please pause. Please push for more independent safety studies regarding the public health and safety of our drinking water supply, not only of our citizens, but also of our beautiful visitors and tourists who come. right? Their safety needs to be provided for as well as our sea life. Please consider supporting us in saving our beaches, our water supply, our sea life. Please keep Cape Cod, especially Barnstable County, safe for the next 5 generations of our family before it's too late. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate what you do. We appreciate your service. And I really, really hope that you will take this new information into consideration. And have a great night when you get out of here. Thank you so much.
State your last name. Mary Ann, did you state your last name? Have you signed in?
I did sign it.
Oh, you did. Great. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Peter Hansen, Osterville resident, Save Greater Dowses Beach member, and Calm Water Commissioner. I would first like to thank the town councilors who attended the Close to the Wind Summit in Hyannis last Saturday. It was well attended, and the information provided was very eye-opening as to what is really going on with the offshore wind industry. These key speakers presented the facts, videos, and slides to support the extreme damages that are being done to our environment from the construction of these turbines and the installation of the cables. The slides were shocking, from destruction of the seabed to the admitted killings of sea life and altering habitats of whales, cod, and lobsters. And again, as been mentioned tonight, you can go on the YouTube channel and see that. Everyone that didn't see it should check it out. These wind companies continue to distort the truth, hide the dangers, and not to provide critical information for the general public to review. The landing of the cables onto our pristine beaches is outrageous. Tearing up our historic streets to install these high-voltage cables is ludicrous, along with being a public safety hazard. These companies still cannot assure anyone with a pacemaker that they will be okay, either on the beach or walking down one of the roads with these cables underneath. Why? Because they do not know. Are we going to post signs on the beach that warn people with pacemakers? Think about that. Great for tourism, too. The last item is these massive substations that are proposed over our sole source aquifer. Cliff talked about it earlier. It keeps coming up. The part that bothers me is that few people know about this. Why? Because they don't want you to know about this, because of the massive size, 28 acres. And again, in direct proximity to a future well location to supply Barnstable. There's going to be a lot more coming out on this story, which you'll hear later on, not tonight, but soon. In summary, as a water commissioner, I urge the town council to stop the fight to stop Park City Wind project. Please think about all the concerns that you have been hearing about from local citizens. Think about it, and thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
My name is Andrew DeRosiers. I've lived in Marston's Mills all my life. I'm 40 years old. As I see it, there are 2 groups involved in this issue. One group says that it'll save the planet and that we have to do it. One group says it's dangerous, it's not a good idea, people don't want it, we don't need it. One group is telling me that I have to do it. By the way, I'm not an expert. I don't have any fancy pieces of paper stuck to my wall. I'm just a taxpayer, so take that for what it's worth. One group respects my liberty to choose. One group is telling me I have no choice, that we must do this to save the world. And incidentally, they need my tax money to do it, and I have no say in it. I've gone to a number of these events, speaking of this. I went to the one that was over at Four Seas, listened to them lay out their pitch about why this was wonderful, it was the greatest thing ever, it's going to make history. And I went to the Wind Summit just recently on Saturday. Nothing that was mentioned as a concern at the Saturday meeting was ever brought up by any of the lawyers or any of the representatives from Eversource or Avangrid or their lawyers or anybody else brought up not one of those issues, as though they didn't exist. And oddly enough, there were no experts at the event on Saturday to refute why any concern that they were bringing up was unwarranted. I don't really give a damn about the state of Massachusetts climate goals. They are not my goals. My goal is to limit bureaucracy's involvement in my daily life. Every single day I get up, go to work to make money so I can pay my taxes so that they can be wasted on the stupidest damn things ever. None of it helps me. None of it's making my life easier. None of it's decreasing my costs of living. None of it's making my life easier, increasing my liberty, making my pursuit of happiness easier, or expanding my liberties. I don't need it. I don't want it. The group of people who came up here and told you what the concerns were, they're speaking for me. The group of people who came up here and told you they're bad guys and they just don't care about the environment, they do not speak for me. I have the right to use fossil fuels if I damn well please. And I dare anybody to show me anywhere in the town charter or anywhere else where it says that I, as an American citizen, don't get to choose.
Andrew, that's 3 minutes. If you could finish up, please.
If you don't want to listen to me, if you don't believe me, and again, I'm just a taxpayer, I'm not an expert, but you should listen to the fishermen. You should listen to the Coast Guard. You should listen to the people that will actually have to deal with the consequences of this. And at the very least, they said it's up on YouTube. If you think anything there is not true, go see it for yourself. But please, don't let somebody who wants their I Saved the World Scout badge tell you where to blow my tax monies, because every time I have to pay my property tax, I keep asking myself why I'm paying it and why I'm still in this state. And I'm increasingly finding it hard to answer that question. I'm done. I'm sick of it. I hope you all have a good night. Hope you don't take it too personally.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne. Let me sign in first and then. I know when a tough act to follow has preceded me. That's not why I'm here. I have the list to talk about issues would fill up thousands of reams of paper. The issues have been articulated clearly. My name is Larry Morin, by the way. The issues have been articulated well. There's no question that the summit event was incredible. But more importantly, I think the question becomes, how do we get this under control? I'm very, very confident in this town council, primarily because I know all of you, some of you more than others. But the important thing, I've got 3 points that I'm going to present. First of all, I've practiced law for more than 50 years. And I started out as a public defender in Colorado, and I had everything from parking tickets to murder one. And sure, I had some moments when I was scared going into court. But I never was afraid to challenge, because first of all, you got different opinions, different facts. That's the essence of what this process is all about, different views, respecting the views, but being able to support them or oppose them. So anybody that's fearful of litigation is missing the boat. Litigation may be the only way that this gets resolved. But if you're fearful of it and you're not willing to face it, then you are cheating yourself and the town. The second thing I want to suggest is that recently there was a presentation, I don't remember who did it, I think it was one of the members of the town staff, who talked about the fact that he or somebody, maybe it was the legal department, did not go out and get independent factual evidence from engineers, scientists. They didn't get that in. They relied on the state. That's like the Good Humor Man with an empty ice cream truck. That was not the way to go. We're talking about this is the chance to find somebody, go out there, a staff of people, get the scientific facts put together so you can present them, not what Avangrid said, but find some evidence that we can support. The final point is that back when the campaign was going on, I got to know John Crow. And in the process of doing that, he gave me a sign that is in my front yard. It's going to stay there. It says, Save Dowses Beach. Now, I live in Cotuit, so I don't care where I live in one of the villages. That's where the sign is. But I think we need a new sign. And the sign is simple. Save Cape Cod. Save Barnstable. That's the sign we need. Thank you.
Roberta Malk, 80 Greenwood Avenue. I went to the summit. I couldn't go to the whole thing. I was grateful that Jerry Lehman from NEFSA, the commercial fisherman, was there. And if you get a chance to see Close to the Wind, there's a Facebook page now. Everyone should see it. There's so much information on there. I have a problem with these scientists who are too general. I would have loved to hear some facts, the details that I heard at Close to the Wind, how the government is looking the other way as the right whales are dying, because if it has to do with the wind farm, they're allowing it. And they're blaming the fishermen. This is going to come out more and more. There's a lot of investigations going on. There's a lot more work that needs to be done so the facts to be out before we put our footprint out there. And it's not some small footprint. One thing they said at that summit is, keep it wild. Where's the respect for nature and wild? Have we all gone mad?
Thank you for signing in.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Ribeiro da Silva, and I'm a resident here in Hyannis. I have been my whole life, all of 15 years. And I go to school at Sturgis Charter School. And as part of my civics action project, I decided to look into the well-being of our beaches. We spoke to one of your counselors over the phone and talked about our issue. That issue is the removal of trash cans during any season that is not the summer. This leads to people not having a place to place their trash during the winter, and in doing so, people litter on the beaches, making them dirty. We propose for more trash cans during the winter season in order to keep our beaches clean. Thank you.
If that mic's up too high, you can adjust it to your mouth, okay? There you go. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Jacob Gella, and I am a resident of Plymouth. I go to school at Sturgis, and therefore I got to know the town of Barnstable more personally. For our civics action project, we decided to talk about parks and playgrounds. I have noticed that there is a lack of parks and playgrounds here. This is not good for children who desire to have a place to go to have fun. We wanted to push for more parks and playgrounds if the space is available. Thank you for your time.
There's Matthew, see? Were you looking for Matthew before?
Good evening, councilors. Bob Schulte from Centerville. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak. About 2/3 of my comments have already been addressed earlier by commenters, so I'll cut to the chase. I'm really referring to what I think the executive session will largely be about later on tonight. I'm asking, again, that the town council not consider the execution of Article 97 easements on Craigville Beach to Park City Wind. As you know, Park City Wind must resubmit its bid in response to the state's next clean energy solicitation. The results of that process will not be known until at least August and late in the year for any negotiation of power purchase agreements. Given Avangrid's prior termination of contracts in both Massachusetts and Connecticut, it is far from a sure thing, or as they would like to refer to it, a done deal, that they will be the winning bidder. That being the case, why would the town even entertain the idea of executing easements over Craigville Beach with a party that might not be the successful bidder? That would be like owning a piece of beachfront property, giving an easement to someone who says they'd like to buy the house across the road from you, but they still need to get financing. Unfortunately, when they can't get the financing to buy the house across the road, you've already given them the right to use or cross your property whenever they want, even though they never end up being your neighbor. I ask you, is that what Barnstable really wants to do with Craigville Beach? Thank you very much for your patience and listening.
Hi, my name is Grove Harris. I'm a resident of Barnstable, a homeowner over near Covell's Beach. And I want to say that when I first started to come to this room and hear about the Vineyard Wind proposals, I was very nervous. I was like, are you kidding? Electricity and water, those don't really mix. How come my beach? You got rejected from other beaches. What's the deal? So the bottom line is the work has happened. They have restored the beach to its pre-existing condition, and all does seem to be pretty well in that regard. I also think on Cape, we have to take a larger perspective. Covell's is my beach. Craigville is a beach I walk all the time. Dowses is one beach over that I also visit. I want to say that all of these beaches are for everybody on Cape Cod. We here love the ocean. I think it's fabulous. I think we love the wild. It matters. I know it does to everybody here, and I've heard it from my neighbors. One of the things we're talking about here is the problem with public-private partnerships. There is a level of distrust with big business because we know we've been ripped off. There's been a lot of profiteering that's gone on. I want to commend the town of Barnstable for working out an arrangement with Vineyard Wind that showed a lot of effort and a lot of creativity and brought in a lot of safeguards that I haven't seen before. I want to suggest that you write an executive summary of that because it's kind of tedious and hard to read, but I appreciated that in that document there was stuff about for arbitration, here are the experts that are going to come in. Legal advice is going to come from here. If there are problems, there are contingency plans in it. I'm not qualified to say whether those are rigorous enough, and I think a lot of people in this room would want to make sure that they were extremely rigorous. But what we've got here is democracy in action, which I really appreciate, and we've got citizen involvement telling this town we need to protect what we've got. And I also want to tell you, we have got to keep moving forward. A climate emergency has been declared in every county on Cape Cod. I have the privilege to do some advocacy work and offer some insights to the United Nations, and we are in big trouble. For one thing, there are actually plans to try and both restrict but also allow deep seabed mining across the world. Our small situation here fits into a much larger global context. So we need to be focusing our passion for the wild, for our oceans, into the creative kind of public-private partnerships that I have seen in this town and I want to see more of. At the same time, we also need to think about an all-hands-on-deck approach and how can we think about what are all the changes that we need to make. Can people try and reduce their footprint? Can we push for alternative energy sources in addition to wind, thinking about what are we doing about transportation on Cape Cod? Because Massachusetts has been a leader for a long time.
3 minutes, if you could finish up, please.
Thank you. And Cape Cod is a leader in Massachusetts, so we need to continue in that vein. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ivan France. I live in Hyannis. I'm also a teacher at a high school in Barnstable, physics teacher. I'm here to speak in favor of the renewable energy efforts and specifically the installation of wind turbines off the coast of Cape Cod. And I did not expect to be so wildly in the minority with that opinion tonight, I'll be honest. Here on the Cape, we are at the mercy of the elements more than anybody else in the state or the country. And as a result, we are among the first to feel the effects of climate change. And because of this, we should be on the leading edge of the effort to slow the process. Greenhouse gas emissions are the main contributing factor to global warming, and we have a responsibility to eliminate our reliance on fossil fuels that release these gases. Wind power is clean, it's everywhere, and we just aren't using it. I grew up visiting the Cape every summer with my family, and when I came back, I went to visit the beaches that I used to go to on the National Seashore, and I barely recognized them because of the changes that the weather and the ocean had made. And these changes are inevitable, right? That's the way things work, but it is, the changes are increasing. They're getting faster and faster as we continue to do nothing. I had a moment of clarity when I realized that if this is what had happened in the last 10 years, then what's going to happen when I bring my kids back to show them where I spent my childhood and where I started my adult life here on the Cape. Changes are inevitable, especially when we're out here on a giant sandbar. But that doesn't give us the permission to throw up our hands and feet. We owe it to the next generation, to my kids and to my grandkids, to keep fighting to slow the effects of climate change. The installation of offshore wind turbines is a real and tangible way for us to do so. Thank you.
I'm left-handed, so it takes me a little longer to sign in.
Take your time. We don't have a time limit on signing in. Just on.
I was just wanting to be sure the
just
time
on
didn't
speaking.
start, so. My name's William Beal. I live in Centerville, and I'm very happy to wake up every morning to the glistening waters of Lake Waquaket, which I hope are not going to be polluted. But people have been talking about wind power, and I'm a retired respiratory therapist and currently serve as vice chairman of the Massachusetts Board of Respiratory Care. So clean air is something that concerns me very much. But what concerns me as much is that if we're going to do it, we need to do it safely. And right now, I don't think we have prepared for that. Once the cables come ashore, they're not coming ashore with AC voltage, which is what has been going on since this started. We are going to be the first experiment in high voltage DC current. And high voltage DC current has two characteristics. One, they generate a lot of heat. So the cables that are coming up the road are going to be generating heat. They're going to be encased in cement and then inside something else and then the road. My curiosity is what's going to happen after years and years of all this heat coming up to our roadways. What happens when the road freezes and the thawing and all that? We're going to have significantly higher highway expenses? I don't know. The other concern is electromagnetic radiation. Now, right now, at the meeting that was at Cape Cod College, was a gentleman who lives near Oak Street and got up and spoke about how he used to touch his water faucet and would get electrocuted because of the radiation that came from the current Oak Street station. I've spoken to 3 people whose homes back up to the power lines now going from Chute Flying Hill Road to Oak Street, who have had to call in the electric company because of radiation from the current voltage passing there. This is all going to get a lot greater. So if this is going to work, and if you want your citizens to be safe, you need to ask some questions. Number one, the meeting at the State House, there were several agreements made. One was for 2 field strength meters to be put along the route of the cable. Totally inadequate. What about those of us who can live as close as 20 feet to the roadway and therefore no more than 30 feet from where those cables are going to be? They put the monitors in, and they get a high reading. Nobody has said, what now? What are they going to do to remediate it? What are they going to do to provide safety for the residents between the time of detection and the time of remediation?
That's 3 minutes, if you could finish up, please.
Thank you. Please go back and look at the questions asked at the State House. I've heard no answers to the agreements and what was supposed to happen. Please be sure that you know the difference between DC and AC. And if you look at the original agreements made when wind power first came down here, if anything translates into today's agreements, that's the difference between AC and DC. And that could mean problems for you. Thank you.
Well, we came together, so I guess I might as well speak after. My name is Joanne Carpenter, and I too live in Centerville. And I'm not left-handed. We are not opposed to wind power. And I think many who are here, there's mixed feeling about wind power in general. What we're concerned about are those cables. There's been a lot of talk about the safety for whales and fish and fishermen and everything that goes on in the ocean. And I ask to bring your attention to those of us who will be living, residing, paying taxes for property that abuts those cables. These are cables that have never been landed in the United States and brought through a residential area, not the direct voltage. High voltage, yes, but it is new technology. We do need, the first speaker asked that there be unbiased scientific information is needed. Absolutely, no question. But may we please have that before we're living with them. Some of us don't want to become part of the studies that are done, in 10, 20, 50 years from now. Hopefully, it will work. Hopefully, DC power will be the answer, one of the answers for alternative energy. But let's not bring it through residential areas immediately. Let's learn more about it, please. And I also want to ask you to look at maps. Perhaps the maps that were presented earlier this evening will show. I haven't seen them. But there are residents. Some of us just have it running in front of our house or behind our house. There are going to be residents living in the area where it will be in front of and behind and possibly beside their houses. It can be in the form of buried cables. It can be in, you've all seen the new high power lines that are being put in, those monstrosities. People talk about high power lines and they think about what runs up and down the streets or the high power lines of old. But the new towers that are being put in are significantly different. There's significantly more of them. They're significantly blighting the land visually. But we don't know about what the electromagnetic field impact is going to be. Because this much
That's
power...
3 minutes, if you could finish up, please.
Thank you. This much power has not been... This is new. This is the new technology. And the gentleman, I don't remember his name, but from St. Mary's, said it's not a new technology, and I beg to differ. This is new technology. Thank you.
I already signed in. My name is Sandy Jones, and I'm from Centerville, and I wanted to speak about, actually, Vineyard Wind. I wanted to ask the council to possibly put a pause on Park City Wind. And the reason being is, if you look at Park City Wind, they've always asked for delays. Initially, there was one with the EFSB back in 2019. They canceled their power purchase agreement contracts in Connecticut in 2023, yet Revolution Wind did not cancel their contracts, and they've continued building. The Hill administration said it delaying the state's next procurement of offshore wind by nearly 2 months to allow more time for the Internal Revenue Service to provide guidance on the availability of new tax credits. The delays push back the deadline for submission of bids from January 31st to March 27th. More importantly, a 2-month delay means final approval for the next offshore wind deals may not come until the end of '24, possibly early of 2025. There will be multiple bidders, and signing off on these future permits put Park City Wind in an advantage to its competitors. A delay would benefit Avangrid as well as the viability of the project. I ask you, look at the Vineyard Wind project. There are over $1 million in liens between contractors on the 40 Communication Way parcel, and they're listed as a breakdown as change orders. Did these orders delay the construction? What costs did the town incur, if any, due to these changes? Has the town performed an audit on Vineyard Wind and the overages that they've caused to the town? At the Energy Facility Siting Board Park City Wind hearing back on December 11th, the town of Barnstable requested intervenor status. Secretary Tepper asked Avangrid if they would be willing to allow partial intervenor status, and Ken Kimmel said no, it was too late. The town has learned our lessons from Vineyard Wind. Town manager Mark Ells said there have been challenges to the town and the residents with the Vineyard Wind project. Public safety issues due to construction changes, the police, public works, and the communications departments expended significant staff resources on the project. Vineyard Wind needs an experienced management team. He indicated that the project was not operating efficiently as it should have, and he asked for a more detailed emergency response plan. The Cape Cod Commission approved Park City Wind with 60,000 gallons of dielectric fuel stored at the Chute Fine Hill substation, and we now know this is 125,000 gallons. I reached out to the presiding officer of the Energy Facility Siting Board that approved the Park City Wind project.
That's 3 minutes, if you could finish up,
Yes,
please.
and I asked if he was provided, if he approved the project without a final spill prevention control countermeasure. He got back to me in 10 days, and he sent me a draft from 2020, then it has not been finalized. Before we rush into Park City Wind, we need to reevaluate the Vineyard Wind project. The Vineyard Wind project is not up and running. There's one turbine that's intermittent and has not been running since January 6th. Should the residents of Barnstable have to pay for the charges incurred with the overtures of Vineyard Wind? They've delayed the project. And secondly, I just asked the DPW, the town manager, and appropriate departments to meet with the council to discuss the issues that Attorney Charlie McLaughlin mentioned and Mark Ells for the reason of being an intervener. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanya Weimer, and I'm a resident of Centerville. I am here to speak in favor of the offshore wind project. I too am an educator of more than 23 years in the field of chemistry and biology. I am also only been in Cape Cod since 2011. I'm an expat or a transplant or wash ashore is the proper name. So It was my surprise when I started walking my dogs on the beach once the summer ended, and I saw all these signs that said "Save Dowses, Save Our Beaches," and I was all behind that. It definitely is important. This is a beautiful, immaculate area, and after traveling many other places and living all over the world, it is a magical place and a very special place to me. However, when I got that flyer in the mail that says what this group is really supporting, was very surprising. And my colleague today, which introduced a new word to me, greenwashing, I was surprised that what they were saying is what I felt was, let's save Dowses now, but let's not worry about future generations. So I remember someone up here talking earlier saying how they want to bring their kids, and they remember how their kids sit on the beach. Well, I hope that we make choices that's going to save our beaches for not just now, not tomorrow, but years, hundreds of years now. So all of our grandkids and our future generations can enjoy what we get to enjoy today. Another point I heard someone make was about the fisheries and the right whales. And one of the first things I teach in my science classes to my students is the difference between correlation and causation. And I think it's important. It's easy to find correlation between any two variables. However, it takes a lot of information. It takes a lot of studies. It takes a lot of research to find actual causation. And one of the examples I use is that when ice cream sales go up, shark attacks increase. All right, that's a correlation. However, is it really the ice cream sales that causes the shark attacks? Do we need to get rid of and stop selling ice cream on Cape? I don't think so. And I think when we bring these points up about the right whales, and we bring up points about the birds and all that information, that we can't just look at these correlations. We actually have to look at the facts that talk about causation and the information and the science evidence that supports that. So please, again, I ask that you make your judgments based on not just what's going to look good tomorrow, what's going to help the Dowses Beach, be pretty for, through construction, but what's actually going to make a difference for the rest of the generations to come. Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Jennifer Vecchi. I'm a resident of the town of West Barnstable, and I've lived here for over 30 years. I'm also a practicing attorney, 31 years. I can say this, you are in a very unique position. You're either going to be remembered for being a patriot, or you're going to be remembered for taking a bribe. They're offering this town $16 million over a period of over 20 years. You're never going to see the money. There's foreign entities that own these projects coming into our pristine area. They have no regard for us. The only people that can protect us are all of you. It's not just about one cable landing. It's about our whole ecosystem. Everything's connected. Every time you change something, it affects another. So for instance, the cables are very hot. It creates a lot of heat. They're going to be using the ocean mixed with bleach, and they're going to be using these pumps that sucks in 12,000 gallons of water per minute that they have to cool, and it's like 100 degrees, the water. So they're dumping hot water into the ocean. If you go back and look and think about what we learned in grammar school about our world, how the continents have changed. They've always been changing. Sometimes they're covered with water, sometimes they're not. We've seen civilizations come and go. We've seen beach erosion. That doesn't mean it's climate change. It's just been rebranded. They used to be called pollution. So there's something every one of us can do about pollution. But we can't control whether it's going to rain today, whether it's going to snow tomorrow, or whether a hurricane is going to roll across the Atlantic from Africa. We have no control over it, and we cannot control climate change. The globe is changing. It's been changing for eons. Another thing, I don't know if you've seen the Webb telescope that's going through the galaxies, and it's showing these fantastic pictures from outer space, distant galaxies, of how everything is changing. It's like a time machine because it's going towards the light. So you're seeing the beginnings. Everything keeps changing, but we need the town council to protect our health, our future, and not allow someone to come in and basically industrialize Cape Cod. We have one piece of this cog. You have one piece, and that is not giving out these easements and licenses for short money that we'll never see. And that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment?
As you can see, I can hardly walk. It's from my old hockey playing days, rough and tumble sport of hockey, so I always liked to be last. Coming out on the ice, I always tried to come out last, so here I am. I'll make a final comment regarding some of the comments that have been said previous to this, but I'm here on another matter tonight. In fact, I gave, and I think all of you have a copy of this. I'm here to talk about tax assessments. I happen to be in the real estate business. And so we have a gross problem with, unfortunately, a lot of the tax assessments in town. Last night, I had the luxury, if you will, of trying to help friends of mine who are in their 80s. They live on Sunset Lane in Barnstable. Sunset Lane in Barnstable is a road that goes like this around. You have homes over here on the water and homes on the other side. My friends in their 80s just saw their tax assessment go up $196,200. And on the piece of paper I gave all of you, it shows that the homes on the non-waterfront side of that street went up $214,700, $237,500, $237,500, $196,200, $196,200. Those were increases between 16 and approximately 20%. Now we get to the other side of the street. Homes on the water, and one could reasonably argue and assume that waterfront homes probably should be going up. Guess what? Their assessments on the waterfront side of the street went down by the following: $300,400 down by $526,000, down by $461,000, down by $442,000. How can our town have homes on one side of the street go up from about $195,000 in their assessment to as much as $526,000, while homes directly on the other side of the street went down in value? So we had homes on the one side going up in value and homes on the other side, the waterfront side, going down. To me, that's borderline criminal. And you know, the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution says that all residents are supposed to be treated equal. You know, we have a serious problem when we have this gross inequities in the tax assessments in this town, because what happens is it's a trickle-down effect. People who wind up with these gross increases in their assessments, guess what the insurance company does? I ran into someone the other day and their insurance premium went up from $1,900 to a little over $5,000, $5,100. You know, folks, we need to be, I said the last time, and I'm going to continue, I'm going to come to this podium every week, and I'm going to keep saying it and keep saying it. We need to focus on the taxpayers in this town, and we need to fix this gross problem with the assessing department in this town. If this were a private corporation and I were running it, I might walk in there tomorrow and start firing people. So thank you very much for the opportunity to hear me tonight. I hope that all of you can weigh in with the town manager, look into this, see if we can fix this, because I'm sure this isn't the only street in town that saw this. This is a gross inequity. And on a final note, all I can say is, you know, I come here week after week. I'll wrap this up. I try to stand here on behalf of helping people. And I'll tell you what, I'm with all of these people fighting the Avangrid lunacy project. I spent 24 and a half years in the building business, and I'll tell you what, the one thing that's most important in my heart is to protect our sole source aquifer. You don't need to know, we don't need to know anything else than protecting that water supply, because their experiment, if it goes bad, guess what? We're all done, all of us. Thank you very much, and thank you, all of you, for the time that you put in. I watch, believe me, I go home sometimes and see you walking out of here at 11:30. And anybody, most of the people in town, they understand that, they know that, and I think most people respect you for that, and they thank you for that.
Any other public comment? He doesn't have to be last, you know. Guess not. Okay. Lynn, do we have anybody online?
Yes, we have quite a few speakers online.
Okay.
Our first person is Ellen Nozzle. Ellen, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Nozzle. I'm speaking on behalf of my wife, Ellen, who had to step away. We live in Centerville. Good evening, councilors and fellow Barnstable residents. I'm among the many citizens, along with experts in their fields, whose message has been loud, clear, and consistent. Say no to the Park City Wind project. The list of reasons grow every day as we learn more about the risk of industrializing our town and about a company that we cannot, and should not trust. Every one of our public comments to every public official or group, whether verbal or written, has carried the same theme. Say no to Park City Wind landing at Craigsville Beach. Only after officials have given their authorization do they suggest conditions that Avangrid might meet to make us a little happier about the whole deal. This is a small picture view. We're talking about the big picture. Craigsville Beach is and always will be the wrong place to bring 800 megawatts of power ashore. It is the wrong place regardless of what company seeks to do so, now or at any time in the future. We are asking for an unequivocal no to the Park City Wind project. The important decision falls to this wise, committed, and informed council. Please do not grant an easement for Article 97. It is not easy to tell the state that, as stewards of the land, we intend to keep the protections granted to Craigsville Beach under Article 97, even in the face of whatever pushbacks have been suggested. As your constituent, I am 100% committed to supporting you in such a decision. Thank you for listening.
Next, we have Janice Kubiak. Janice, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, hello. This is Jan Kubiak. I became familiar with doing this, paying attention to what was happening in Park City and in Osterville and Centerville because, excuse me, because I was very familiar with what happened with Vineyard Wind and very upset that it took 2 years of delay that they were not expecting. It hurt them financially and it hurt them logistically. It hurt all of us because in that 2 years, we had 3.2 million metric tons of carbon go up into the atmosphere. That's what delaying does. It's making our situation worse. So if you're not trying to expedite, if you're trying to delay this progress, not make immediate safety changes that might have to happen, then I think it's a very dangerous thing to do. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you? The other thing is that being, protecting your Facebook page or your website with things that just are not true. Like on the website, we were made aware of an investigation that showed that the big explosion with the video that it showed on that website actually had nothing to do with electric cables. And it's just not right not to pull that video or pull the whole website down. It neither was right. I would not go to Close to Summit because it wouldn't allow me to post anything. I was reading things that I thought deserved to be addressed, and I wasn't allowed to post, and I wasn't allowed to comment, and almost no one was. I saw one person that was allowed to comment, and that was it on the whole site. This is not an open discourse. And so, yeah, I'm upset. You know, I hope you will rethink it, and I hope you will think about how are you going to give us clean energy if we don't have this? Like, what's your plan? Just to keep burning fossil fuels? It's not a good plan. Oh, thank you very much.
Next, we have Michelle G. Michelle, could you state your last name? You may unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi. Hi, I'm Michelle Scarlett, and I live in Marston's Mills. I'm here in support of the Park City Wind Project. Climate change is an existential threat to Cape Cod, especially as a coastal community. As you may have seen in the Cape Cod Times yesterday, Dr. Sarah Doss, a scientist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, was recently named to the new Massachusetts Climate Science Advisory Panel. Dr. Doss states climate change is not a looming crisis, it's already here. Coastal flooding from the sea rise and more intense storms are affecting Cape Cod, and these problems are only going to accelerate in the coming decade. Not all opinions are equal. Many references to inaccurate and misleading information abound. This is a complicated issue, but I hope the town council can replicate the successful partnership that exists with Vineyard Wind. We do not have the benefit of doing nothing. We are responsible for the world we leave to our children and grandchildren. We need to make the most educated decisions based on reputable science to address the complicated decisions before us. I urge the town council to move ahead with this project and complete the job of landing cables at Craigville Beach and allow this clean energy source to be realized. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Wendy Boyer. Wendy, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Boyer. I'm a resident of Centerville, and I just want to start by saying that I am all for green energy and combating global warming and doing our part, because it takes a lot of resources to get that done, and somebody has to start. But please don't bring billions of watts of energy ashore at recreational and residential areas. This is destructive, dangerous, and unnecessary. There are more appropriate sites for industrial energy landfall. We know that the town is in a tough situation with a host community agreement in place with a contractor that we can't trust. We understand that nobody wants litigation. We also understand that state and federal politicians are behind attaining green energy deadline goals, which are absolutely unattainable. Please know that the community represented here is 100% behind your decision to stop the continued and unnecessary industrialization of our recreational areas, our village main streets, and the jeopardizing of our drinking water. Thank you for being strong, and thank you for representing us well. Good night.
Next, we have Diane Walker. Diane, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Diane Walker from West Barnstable. And I am, even though I've been hearing quite a bit about this, I've become more interested in finding out details, and I am amazed at the citizen comments and the focus of the council to allow people to speak their mind, and I do appreciate that. What I keep hearing is that we need clean energy, and I do definitely support that, absolutely, but of course not at the detriment of the environment, which is what we're trying to preserve. I just keep hearing that these cables have been decided to come through public beach space, and that they're going to, these massive substations are going to be located on the Cape. I'm just wondering if the rest of the state, the entire state of Massachusetts, will be benefiting from this. Is there no other location? It's just a question I'm throwing out there. It seems like the decision has already been made. Maybe it's the shortest distance. I don't know, but maybe it's something that needs to be re-examined. I really don't know, but I, as a citizen here, I am just listening with open ears. I do very much support clean energy, but I also support the environment and anything that is impacted negatively because of it. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Helen Parker. Helen, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
But of course not at the detriment of the environment, which is what we're trying to preserve. I just keep hearing that these
Helen,
cables have been decided to come through public
turn down
beach space,
volume on your TV?
and that they're going to, these massive substations are going to be located on the Cape. I'm just wondering if the rest of
Helen, you may unmute now. You have 3 minutes.
The poor thing.
much support clean energy, but I also support the environment.
I'm a mess.
Anything that is impacted negatively because of it. Thank you very much.
And I said I was a mess.
Helen, you need to turn off either the stream
Next,
or your television.
Helen Parker. Helen, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi. Yes, I was just contacted today and asked if I could speak.
The environment, which is
Where am I getting?
Just keep hearing.
Let's see. Yeah.
Sorry, turn on.
How's that work? I was running 2 systems. Am I good now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you may go. Thank you.
Hello? Maybe this is that my volume is off. Hello?
Helen, we could hear you. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much. I was contacted today by Bonnie Brady of the Long Island Fisheries. We can't pull her whole name up, full agency up here. Asked if I might speak for a couple of minutes, and I'm totally unprepared, but this is my passion. I've been involved with with industrial wind since 2008. And it's so wonderful to hear. This is extraordinary tonight, this public hearing. I was involved with the Barnstable public hearings in 2019 with Vineyard Wind. I lived for 25 years and my husband 50 years full-time on the vineyard until just this past April. And I was described as the lone dissenter on the vineyard by the media there, and I truly was. My husband began looking into industrial wind in 2008 as the selectman in Chilmark, and also the steamship representative from the vineyard. And it is incredible to hear these people from Barnstable understanding the truth of this. When you say we're going to have monitors in the neighborhoods, and what if you get high readings? What then? I wrote back in 2015 on a pamphlet, which is somewhere here. What about if there's something untoward that comes up? What if something goes very obviously very wrong? Whales whales washing up on shore, and we have had them since 2016 when there was a spike in 2017 after the Block Island Wind project came online. They talk about mitigation measures. What kind of mitigation measures are you going to have? What kind of mitigation measures are you going to have when you have 62, and this is just Vineyard Wind, 62 turbines taller than the highest, than the Prudential building in Boston? It's insane what they're suggesting. But what's a gift to us now is that these
That's 3
turbines are
minutes, if
coming
you
up.
could finish
My
up,
husband
please.
and I left the Vineyard and we've moved to Newport, 40 miles away, and we can see that what someone told me today was 5. No, it's 7. We can see those 7 Vineyard Wind turbines with the naked eye from 40 miles away. And our family comes to visit from the Vineyard and they say, there are red lights on those things and they're not turning them. We thought they were going to turn them off. No, they're not going off. Maybe once the 62 turbines are up, 5 years from now, whenever they get them up. What can you trust from these companies? They say, oh, it will only be a smudge on the horizon, but we can see them turning from 40 miles away.
Excuse me, Mrs. Parker.
There is a magnificent
Mrs. Parker,
hearing.
your time is up.
U.S. Representative Andy Harris, Maryland representative, has on YouTube, you can find it.
Ellen, if you
The
could finish
Institute
up, please.
I'm sorry?
Could you finish up, please? You're over 4
Yeah,
minutes.
what I want to tell you is go to the courts. The courts, you can win in the courts. Edgartown Conservation Commission has denied the cables and they've been overruled. They've been pushed to not go to the courts. If you go to the courts, you will win because the truth is on your side. Because these foreign companies are coming in to destroy with absolutely no positive merit. You're going to see blackouts. If we get
Ellen,
if we get
finish up.
another freeze like we did in Texas 2 years ago, where over 200 people died because Texas was counting on wind turbines. So go to the courts. God bless you. Go into executive session and choose to say no.
Thank you, Helen.
Our next speaker is Gary Conley. Gary, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I want to confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great, thanks for having me. Jerry Connolly, I live in Craigville Village. It's a sacred spot between Cavell's Beach, Craigville Beach, and the Craigville River, but unfortunately, all 3 of these pristine areas are under assault. I'm an electrical engineer, a master's degree in engineering. I spent my career understanding electricity, energy efficiency, and electrical systems. However, I don't report to be an expert by any means, but I'm able to educate myself on complex matters. However, I'd say this is not really a complex matter. It's simply greenwashing. I fully agree with the comments made by the scientists that opened the meeting. There's unlimited misinformation and biased reporting out there. However, there was an inference that any opposition to this project was uninformed, uneducated, and unscientific. Also, the supposition that the scientific method can completely improperly model any and all effects, whether that be from past data, things that are occurring in real time or in the future, is simply flawed. And I would think that any engineer or scientist would agree with me that any modeling can quickly be disproven by the discovery of new information. So I'd say let's please not purport to understand the future impacts when we have not yet completed enough study or really understand the full effects that could exist here. But we already know that the risks exist because there are multiple studies from recognized global scientific bodies that document the impact of electric and magnetic field emissions on the seabed. These effects are very concerning. However, the supporters of the program are now resorting to a media campaign of slander and belittlement to circumvent the thorough and responsible evaluation of these effects. And the other suggestion related to money and lobbying, but truly, and it's not a surprise, and it's not a secret, the amount of money spent on political lobbying to date on this entire project to really get it pushed through comes from industry. And it hasn't been dark money. It's just been money that's been painted green. And we all recognize that. So in closing, I'd say we're stewards of the landscape, the future, we're stewards of the future for our children, and also of the ecosystem. I'd ask the town council to make public safety the priority, as it should in any situation. Public safety is our top priority, and ensure that we understand any risks before we think about revenue streams. So please don't approve the Park City wind easement. Thank you.
Our last speaker is David Hasseltine. David, you may unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is David Mahassel. I live in West Barnstable. I've been coming down the Cape my whole life. I've been living here for 25 years. I am an electrical engineer, and I'm an avid fisherman. I don't know if any of you have ever been out there to look at the whales and the dolphins and the sharks out there, right? And I don't know why the IFAW is so concerned when a fisherman goes over 10 miles an hour, but they're not concerned when hundreds and hundreds of whales wash up dead in the shores of New Jersey and New York. All right, where's all the studies on what this sonar blasting of the seabeds are doing? I mean, these fish and animals navigate with sonar. And you're out there blasting sonar day in and day out at these animals, and then blasting and hammering these huge towers into the ground, right? Imagine having a football helmet on and me sitting there whacking your head with a wiffle ball bat for 8 hours a day. You think you'd get a headache and lose your direction and end up on a beach dead? I just want to know where the IFAW stands in all this, and where is their reporting? These windmills are a disaster. These companies are going out of business. We're following Europe down the drain. Sea level hasn't changed in 200 years. The Cape was made on the Ice Age. Beaches move, erosion happens. This is not climate change. This is the Green New Steel of our tax money and destroying the natural beauty of Cape Cod and turn it into an industrial park is ridiculous. Is IFAW involved in any of these studies and know why these whales and dolphins and all these things are washing up dead in New York and New Jersey? Or are they getting paid off too? Are you all getting paid off? It's pretty disgusting that you're going to destroy the Cape and its natural beauty. To think you're going to change the climate on the earth is ridiculous. I'm done.
Well, he was the perfect end to our public comment session. Couldn't have scripted it better had we tried. Thank you to him for calling in. That's great. Okay, we have, and thank you to all of you for staying and sharing your thoughts with us. We have council response to public comment. Any hands on my left? Nada. Councilor Turkelson?
Just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and recognizing the importance of not throwing everybody that doesn't agree with you under the bus. I think it's important that we listen to both sides. I think that's what the Close to the Wind Summit achieved for me personally, was just to hear the other side. It's easy to forget that there is no definite answer and that we need to remain open.
Councilor Neary?
Thank you, Madam President, and I concur with Councilor Turkelson. I will say that over the last year, through the efforts of the folks in town, and it's been great. We've had a great educational learning experience, so to speak. And I know that I can speak for everyone that we can assure you that we're hearing what you're saying, and we'll make the decisions or try to make decisions that that fit the scope of what you're looking for, as well as fit the scope of where the town needs to be going down the road. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Comments to my right? Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you all who came out tonight. I'm going to focus my comments on the few topics that didn't have anything to do with the wind farm. I wanted to thank Ms. Elias for coming out and promoting our focus on the housing crisis here in Barnstable. And I know I spoke last meeting, and we've talked with leadership about prioritizing a subcommittee on this issue, and I hope that'll be coming out soon. I also would like to thank the two students from Sturgis from coming. It's great that you have that civic project. I know it's very frustrating when you can't find a place to throw something away, and I'm very thankful that we do have waste facilities in different parts of our town year-round, and if there are locations that you think might be a good place, I'm sure we want to hear about it. And parks and playgrounds, always a priority for us, so we'll make sure we are evaluating. Our Recreation Commission is really good at making those assessments, and if you haven't had a chance to share your thoughts with them, please make sure you do. Thank you.
Council Crowe.
Thank you, President Penn. I do also want to thank Matthew De Silva and Jacob Gallo. The trash cans are very important, and with the amount of people here year-round now, they should be always available. As for the parks and playgrounds, I will say that I just had a meeting today with about the Osterville playground that will be coming in, hopefully after 16 years of working on it, and we'll finally get the funds and move that forward. It's going to be a large facility with adult softball, street hockey, all kinds of other things there, tennis courts, pickleball, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that's near and dear to us here in my village, and it's also it's going to be good for the entire town, because a lot of people, I understand, go from playground to playground with their kids, and so we're looking forward to seeing that in the next year and a half. So stay tuned. Hopefully you won't be out of college and having kids by the time we get finished. I do want to say something, and it came up in past week's Cape Cod Times about who's funding what groups and that kind of thing, and I really took offense at that. I know personally some of the groups that are in before us in local. I don't know all the national or other groups, but it was totally off base, and I think if somebody's going to make those accusations, they should follow up with actual facts. Okay, and I've actually am probably going to send a letter to the editor of the Cape Cod Times tomorrow about this fact. And in the past, I have had very little success getting into the Cape Cod Times, but we'll see what happens. But I think those of us who've been on the other side of this council for many years, we've always been told that our facts are wrong or misinformation, and we've gotten to the point where we footnote, cite, show links to everything we've done, and still sometimes that's not enough to get into the paper. So I think if we all look at it as that we have the ability to put forward actual facts and cite them from both sides, I think it'll be better for our community. And I will say tonight, this is one of the most democratic meetings I've seen in a long time in front of the council. I really appreciate everybody coming out. We're going to be here till whenever tonight, but I'd rather be here on a night like this with so many people speaking eloquently and nicely to each other about an issue that's so divisive. So thank you all.
Good. Councilor Terkelson.
Just want to make one other statement. I want to thank John Julius for coming forward about the assessing issue, and I'm hoping, President Penn, that you're considering some maybe a subcommittee to look at assessing for that ongoing issue. I know there's a few, it sounds like there's maybe more than one problem going on. And I know residents in my precinct are still don't feel like there's been a solution to their problem. So, but I appreciate John coming forward and keeping that in front of us.
Thank you. Okay, having no other response to comment, then we're going to go into town manager communications, which have been pre-recorded. I'm just going to give a few highlights here of what was included on that. And if counselors have questions, please do ask. Town manager Els is not here tonight, but, oh, he is. He's in the back. That's the next meeting. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I saw you there. I saw Andy on the aisle, so I didn't see you there. Shame on me. So first, he gave us an update on budget action calendar and where that stands. Talked about the Healy-Driscoll administration's fiscal year 25 budget recommendations. Update on questions by town council regarding monitoring the activation of the Vineyard Wind cable landing at Colville's. That was based on a request that Mr. Cambereri gave at a public session here during public comment one time. So as you can see, we do listen, and there is follow-up sometimes, but we try, and so that's underway. Announcement of an opioid settlement fund workshop, continued efforts to establish how the opioid settlement fund shall be used in the future. I actually went to that workshop with several other counselors. It was quite something. And update by Planning and Development on the LCP, Local Comprehensive Plan. So, questions from the counselors? Would Mr. Els like to come forward, and is there anything new on the list other than what we saw in your report? No? Okay. Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to commend the staff that convened the workshop on Tuesday. It was really a tremendous effort to bring together over 80 people to share their viewpoints on how the opioid crisis has affected them, and discussing ways that we might be able to move forward using the funds that we've received from the settlement dollars. So again, just wanted to thank everyone involved in putting that event together.
Yeah, I would like to piggyback on that. I was very impressed with the quote-unquote talent in the room, the individuals who attended, most of whom had some dreadful personal experience, either through family members or personal experience with opioid addiction, and just the work and their energy and their dedication to making this a better world for everybody was just phenomenal. All these people in one place doing it, most of them voluntarily. It was just astounding to have that, and it was a wonderful experience, to be honest with you. And I know Councilor Levesque, Councilor Turkelson were also there. Okay. No other questions or comments for town manager's report? No. So next thing on our agenda is the acceptance of the minutes from January 18th meeting. I know that I had corresponded to town clerk, actually assistant town clerk, a couple of typographical errors, et cetera, or a few comments that did not appreciably change anything in the minutes of the intent. So I would entertain a motion in a second to accept, unless anybody has anything. So moved. No. So moved in a second. John Crow and Paula. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Are we doing roll call? No. Okay. Okay. Anybody opposed or abstain? Great. Passes unanimously.
Could we move to a break, a short break?
Could we move to a break?
Yeah, before
right now?
Yeah, I think just to freshen up before the presentation.
Okay. We'll take about a 10-minute break upon request. Gordon's taking charge. I love it. Who'd we lose? Kristen, Paul, and John. Maybe. Could the councilors take their seats, please? No, they're not listening. All right, next item on the agenda, communications from elected officials, boards, committees, staff, commission reports, correspondence, and announcements. Councilor Vec.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to all those who participated and came, just to say participated, attended the Ham and Bean Supper at Marston's Mills at the Liberty Hall. I believe over $1,200 was raised for our scholarship fund. And it was over 100 people attended. And, you know, sometimes we get the question of, do we change from ham and beans? You know, do we, you know, modify that? Is that dated? And apparently it isn't. So it's still famous. And people come out, and it is a great deal for $10. So people are very pleased, and just want to thank all the volunteers as well and everybody involved. It was a success. Also, too, I'm talking to President Penn, and it was, it was also brought up tonight. You know, the valuations of homes. You know, we go back again. We're delayed 2 years, so we're talking homes being evaluated on sales of property, not necessarily what their neighbors are, but sales of property. For the year now 2022, and so we saw an increase in 21, 22, and you're seeing that evaluation happen now. I will say it looks like there's less abatements than there have been last year, but I will report more about that on the next meeting. I did follow up. There was also a tax error. I did follow up with the tax collector's office, and just asked that no letters and notifications were sent out to the mortgage companies in regards to making sure that the people's mortgage didn't go up because of the tax error. And again, this was limited to 41 residents in the entire town of Barnstable. But I just asked if they could, because there's that less amount, could they reach out and just confirm before this hits somebody? Because, again, that letter could sit on someone's desk. If they can just call and confirm that they got the information, that they make the correct adjustments so someone doesn't get whacked on their mortgage, you know, in the next coming months. So just to say they agreed to that. Sean O'Brien, tax collectors, on top of that. And, again, I will report out on really how many abatements there were, and it looks like there has been a decrease. It has leveled off. And also, too, in regards to the John Julius's comment during a public comment, that we were handed this handout. Finance Director Mark Milne has a handout in his possession. He will talk to Director of Assessing Lane Partridge, and he will ask him to format a response and forward it out to the council through Cynthia Lovell, our assistant. So I just wanted to report out on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Communications? Councilor Tamish.
I just wanted people to be aware there were 2 meetings this week that will be ongoing, and several of the councilors did attend them. One was on the planning and configuration of Route 132, the town segment of Route 132, from Bursa's Way to the airport rotary. And public comment is certainly solicited on that, and if you have a thought about that, please forward them to the DPW. And the second is through planning. A meeting was held today regarding the Barnstable Adult Community Center, and the thought that something more might be done there with the land and programming, whatever it is. So if you have any thoughts on that, please forward those to planning. Thank you.
Everybody else good? All right. Open meeting law review with our attorney, Karen Nober. This is very important because sometimes we forget that a committee of 3, you can't talk to anybody else because you'll be in violation then. So we're going to have the basics for review.
You just stole my thunder.
I'm sorry. The more you say it, the better it is. So
That's very
yeah.
true. I can't believe the crowd didn't stick around for the open meeting law. Shocked. So good evening, councilors. Karen Nober, town attorney. The open meeting law is one of several good government laws, the public records law, the conflict of interest law. It's really founded on 3 basic principles. So it's whenever a public body holds a meeting, the public must be given proper notice of the meeting. And the notice that is given is the agenda that we post. All meetings must be open and accessible to the public unless the public body properly enters executive session and the statute sets forth the justifications for when you can actually go into executive session. And the third main principle is public bodies must create and maintain accurate minutes. That's for public session and that's for executive session. So the open meeting law applies to all deliberations of a quorum of a public body on matters within the body's jurisdiction. All such deliberations are considered meetings that require compliance with the open meeting law. So deliberation is very broadly defined. It's not just debating an issue with your colleagues. It's an oral or written communication through any medium, including email, between or among a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction. So anything that comes before the council or is likely to come before the council or that falls within your jurisdiction, that is a topic that's within the jurisdiction of the council. And if a quorum is discussing that matter, you are having a meeting. You are deliberating. So public bodies, the law applies to bodies. It doesn't apply to individuals. It applies to boards, committees, commissions, and it applies to subcommittees, which we'll talk about as well. But every requirement that applies to the main board applies to the subcommittee. A quorum is defined by the law as a simple majority of the members of the body unless otherwise provided. Our charter provides that the town council quorum is 9. So again, a meeting is a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. Anytime a quorum is discussing matters within your jurisdiction, you're having a meeting, which must be properly noticed and open to the public. So if 9 of you run into each other in a parking lot, you can talk about the weather, you can ask about each other's families, that's fine. The minute you start talking about council business, you are having a meeting. And if you haven't noticed it properly, you're violating the open meeting law. So there are exceptions. So a quorum can attend an on-site inspection as long as you're not deliberating at any of these events. You can attend an inspection, you can attend an event or a training session, and you can attend a meeting of another public body, again, as long as you're not deliberating. I know when we have had inspections where the counselors have been involved, we have separated it out so that we don't have 9 at any given time, just to double check and to provide that safeguard. So this is something worth talking about. Serial communications among a quorum are deliberations. So if 5 counselors meet to talk about something, and then after that meeting, they each contact another counselor and talk about the same topic that was discussed, and they relay what was discussed in that first meeting, that discussion has now reached 10 counselors. It has now reached a quorum, and that would be a violation. So it's not a meeting subject to the open meeting law if less than a quorum meets and discusses business matters. So when those 5 people first meet, they're not violating the law. But it's not a great practice because you do run the risk of violating the law if you then relay those conversations to other counselors who were not there, such that you reach 9 members. And there's another sort of carve-out, which is you can distribute to the other members via email an agenda, procedural or scheduling information, or reports or documents to be discussed at a meeting, but you can't express an opinion on those documents or matters within the body's jurisdiction. So if you're distributing a report, you can't say, here's what I think about this, because that would be a deliberation. So some of the takeaways. You should avoid email communications with other counselors whenever possible to prevent the emails from being forwarded and eventually reaching a quorum. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but you have to be careful and be aware that that's a risk. If emails are sent to a quorum by an outside party or by town staff, counselors, that's why we routinely say when I send emails to you, do not reply all, because the minute you reply all, you're now talking to each other. So if a counselor wishes to share reports or other documents with other counselors, the better practice is to ask your administrator, the town council administrator, to do that for you. And again, getting back to subcommittees, subcommittee members have to be particularly careful because subcommittees are smaller. So if you have a committee of 5 and you have a quorum of 3, anytime those 3 counselors talk to each other about anything that falls within their committee's jurisdiction, they're violating the open meeting law. So they need to be careful and aware of that. So the meeting law also has notice requirements. I'm going to run through this quickly. We have to post the meeting agenda at least 48 hours in advance. That doesn't include Saturdays, Sundays, holidays. The notice has to include specific information, the date, time, and place of the meeting, a listing of topics that the chair reasonably anticipates will be discussed at the meeting, and any revised notice that gets posted must include the date and time it was posted. So matters not reasonably anticipated for discussion. That comes up sometimes, and it's this just came to our attention, and we want to talk about it. So I think the first issue is, was it really not anticipated? And if that's not the case, then you wait and you put it on the next meeting's agenda. If it really wasn't anticipated, you can have a discussion, but the Attorney General's office strongly advises that you not take any votes until you have you've noticed that on an agenda. So executive session. There are 10 purposes in the law that allow you to go into executive session. There are procedural requirements, which we will follow shortly when we go into executive session. You have to first convene an open session. The chair must publicly state the purpose for going into executive session. You need a roll call vote to go in. You need a roll call vote for every vote you take in executive session. And before you go in, the chair must state publicly whether the public body will return to public session or not, to let people know whether to stick around or not. So meeting minutes. So this was the third main principle. Public bodies must create and maintain minutes of every open session portion of their meeting and every executive session. They must be created and approved in a timely manner. The minutes must include, there are a number of things that the minutes must include: the date, time, place of the meeting, the list of members present or absent, a summary of the discussion on each topic. It's not a transcript. It's not a verbatim, here's what this person said, and then this person said, and this person said. You have to give someone reading the minutes a general understanding of what was discussed. And then there are requests for minutes. The law is a little different for under the open meeting law than it is under the public records law. You have 10, if the request is made under the open meeting law, you have to respond in 10 calendar days. If it's a public records request, you have to respond in 10 business days. If there's a request for open session minutes, they have to be provided in 10 days, even if they're still in draft form, and regardless of whether the public body has approved them. So you would mark them draft, but you would have to provide them. Executive session minutes, that includes the minutes and all documents used during executive session. They must be disclosed once a determination has been made that disclosure will no longer defeat the purpose for which you went into executive session. But there's still a carve-out, which is if the minutes or the documents are exempt from disclosure under the public records law or because of the attorney-client privilege, you can continue to withhold them. Executive session minutes must be periodically reviewed by the chair or by the public body to determine whether continued non-disclosure is warranted. If the public body does it, you would go into executive session to do that. It's sort of a never-ending cycle. So what we do, and what most boards, I think, do, is the chair, the presiding officer, reviews the minutes and makes that determination, and then you make an announcement at the next meeting. So our practice has been to have the president conduct that review with the town clerk and with the town attorney. And the last thing I was going to talk about just quickly is there is a complaint process. So if anyone feels that the public body has violated the open meeting law, they can file a complaint. So to do that, they have to use a specific form that's on the AG's website. They have to file the complaint with the chair of the public body and the town clerk, and they have to file it within 30 days of the alleged violation or within 30 days of the date they reasonably should have known of the violation. And that's usually when something happens in executive session. They may not know it within 30 days. If they're not happy with the response they get from the public body, then they can file a complaint with the Attorney General's office, but they have to wait until 30 days after they first file the complaint with the public body. So the basic takeaway here is if you get a complaint, you call me immediately because there are deadlines for responding. So if a complaint is then filed with the Attorney General's office, they review and they resolve it. And if they find that a violation has occurred, there's a number of things that they can do. They can order immediate and future compliance, which is their way of saying to the public body, we're putting you on notice, and if a similar violation occurs, we may find it to be intentional the next time. And there's a financial penalty for intentional violations. They may order the public body to attend a training session. They may order the release of executive session minutes. They may nullify any action that the public body took in violation of the open meeting law. And again, they may impose a civil penalty of up to $1,000 on a public body for each intentional violation of the law, but they would have to have a hearing before they could do that. And then there's sort of the catch-all, they can order such other relief as they deem appropriate. The other option people have if they want to file a complaint is the Attorney General can initiate a civil action in court, or 3 or more registered voters. So you can go straight to court, or you can use the administrative process. So this is just a list of various resources that are available to assist in understanding the law, and obviously the legal department is here to assist as well. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Karen. There are possibilities that if you are a chair of a subcommittee, that you might receive a complaint under the open meeting law, and you might be on vacation. So you don't open that email for 7 days. Do we have in our town the expectation that if the town clerk receives an open meeting law violation, that that's also sent to your office?
I would assume that that's what would happen, but Anne's not here. The town clerk is not here, so I don't want to speak for her. Janet, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Our usual is to timestamp it in, and then usually we send it up to your admin, Mary Lou Fair, and she gives it to Karen. That's usually what anything like that happens in our office.
So yes.
Yes. Okay. And maybe just a clarification, is there, some of us have multiple emails. Is there an expectation that someone filing a complaint uses a particular email?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Other questions?
Great.
I just have a question. It doesn't say anything about time limit when people are talking. So you get the people in the parking lot example that you gave. So say there's 5 of them that see each other in parking lot, okay? And they're talking sports, all right? But 3 of them branch off, and they happen to say, hey, we had a subcommittee, or the last subcommittee meeting we had, blah, 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 whatever it was. Okay. 2 weeks later, one of them sends an email of content related to the 3 discussion to 2 other counselors. Is that a violation still?
So you have 5, and then it gets to 2 more, so that's 7. So that's not a quorum. But it sounds like the three who are the members of the subcommittee are violating the open meeting law if they're talking about subcommittee business and they're a quorum.
Okay.
So the council is not violating anything, but the committee is.
Could you also clarify that it's not just emails, but texts and other?
It is communications.
everything,
It is
all
communications.
communications, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I have one quick question, thank you. What's the most common pitfall that groups like us fall into? I mean,
I think it's the emails.
emails, okay,
you know.
thank you.
Yeah, I, for one, fell into the trap. Somebody sent me something when we were up at the MMA thing for the weekend. You know, I thought it was a great article, and rather than sending it to Cynthia and asking her to send it out, it was just a lot easier for me to forward it to everybody, to the group. And unfortunately, I could have done that, except for I gave a two-word comment on it, which was a bad idea, so I deliberated, which was,
No opinion.
sent
Okay.
this one right crazy. Yeah, so.
Okay. that
Come on,
helps.
it was a very,
Guilty
it was
as
a very
charged.
low-key response.
It was, it was. Yeah, I know. Take me now. I'll get a good night's sleep.
Okay, no more self-reports.
No, no more confessions.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
We're going to need this because of our subcommittees that will be coming up, so thank you. All right, financial overview, comprehensive wastewater management plan, Mark Milne. He shared this with us before. Go away.
Good evening, councilors.
Hello.
Thank you. Good to see you all this evening. I have a few slides, not too many, to share with you this evening, that update you on our financing plan for the comprehensive wastewater management program. I shared this with a subcommittee of our Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee Tuesday night. We had a robust discussion over this. We are fortunate to have such a dedicated and intelligent and inquisitive group of people there, and they really helped me flush things out and made some suggested improvements to this evening, which I've incorporated some of their ideas. So, and in fact, they're so engaged, I think a couple of them are here tonight in the audience still. A few stragglers that have stayed. So this slide depicts what our 5-year requested program is, and the various projects and the dollar amounts associated with them. As you can see, $432 million we're looking to implement over the next 5 years. The good news is that we have dedicated resources that will be able to provide us enough funding to pay for about half of this, or the projects that you see listed in 2025 and 2026, which include the Long Beach sewer expansion, Route 28 West sewer expansion, the nitrogen removal and headworks at the water pollution control facility, upgrades in Finney's Lane neighborhoods, sewer expansion, Mill Pond dredging, and some preliminary design work for Great Marsh and South County Road. That combined is about $250 million, and again, we've dedicated a number of resources and have been accumulating them, in fact, since 2010, with the foresight that we had, the town council at the time had, in deciding to start dedicating certain resources for this program, which allows us to get to the position we are now. Over $100 million has been invested so far, and this will be another $250 million, so pretty significant investment. How do we finance for one more comment on this slide. The numbers you see in green, we plan to pay for with cash reserves, and the numbers that you see in blue will be financed with a loan that we take out, either through the Mass Clean Water Trust or a general obligation bond. So how do we finance this construction costs? First, there are two sources. First, the Mass Clean Water Trust, which is where we try to finance everything we can. They offer favorable interest rates, and if we can get the project listed on the Department of Environmental Protection's intended use plan, it makes the project eligible for principal subsidies through the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, as well as a subsidy being, we are classified as a disadvantaged community, Tier 1 disadvantaged community, and that provides an additional 3.3% subsidy for us. We're also a housing choice community, and that designation qualifies us for a 1.5% interest rate as opposed to a 2% interest rate, which is what the normal borrowing rate is through the trust. So we do have some incentive here to submit everything that we can to DEP and try to get them to approve our project. But it's a very competitive process. Everybody across the state is submitting their sewer and water projects. They have a limited amount of funding. You have to score high to get on their intended use plan. The good news is that the 3 projects that I mentioned here, or that I asterisked here, which are very expensive projects, were all listed on their 2024 intended use plans. It makes us eligible for the favorable financing and principal subsidies. One challenge that we have, however, is that they limit the amount that we can finance through them on an annual basis to $50 million. So we have to fund those projects over a multiple year period through the trust. We can only borrow $50,000 or $50 million maximum in any one year. So I'll show you how the financing for that will work, or how we anticipate it to work. It can change, though. If projects fall off the list and DEP has additional funding available, they could possibly fund more than $50 million in a given year. But we don't know if any, so, because oftentimes what happens is communities with a project on the list may not be able to go forward with that project in a timely manner, drops off the list, and they make more funding available for the rest of the communities who are ready to go forward.
Has that ever happened?
Yes, it has.
Huh?
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know if it was just theoretical.
No, it actually, it's a good question. It actually does happen. It happens almost every year. There's always some projects on the list that usually don't follow through or get implemented. If we don't finance it through the Mass Clean Water Trust, we're stuck with packaging whatever remaining loan amounts we need for this program with all of our other loans that we authorize for municipal facility upgrades, for example, and issue once a year a general obligation bond. We do this every year. We're a frequent player in that market. Once a year we go out for a general obligation bond to fund mostly our general fund and enterprise fund capital programs, the ones that aren't eligible to be submitted through the Department of Environmental Protection's funding source. And that's a bid process. We put it out for a negotiated bid or a competitive bid, and we award the bond to the lowest interest, whoever bids the lowest interest rate on our bond. You can negotiate those with investment brokers, but we find the competitive bid process works best. The current borrowing rates in that market are estimated right now. We're seeing anywhere from 3.75 to a little over 4%, so we're using a 4% rate right now as our best estimate. We'll know more in a couple of months when we go out for our next bond, but it changes all the time. It's every day that rate will change up and down. Depends on how many people are in the market that day, what the federal government's doing, the federal board, and just the general economy. Once we issue these loans, the payback of those loans become part of our operating budget in the future years. And that's where we start feeling the budgetary impact from an operational standpoint, is when you have to start paying that loan back. To give you an example of the timeline from the time we appropriate the money to the time our first loan payment takes place, here's an actual timeline for our Route 28 East project. We appropriated the funding for that in June of 2021, which is the very end of fiscal year 21. We signed that contract for construction about a year later in June 2022, exactly a year later. The construction began on that project around September of 2022, and we entered into an interim loan with the Mass Clean Water Trust to finance that construction cost. Again, another benefit of working with the Mass Clean Water Trust is they'll give us an interim loan at 0% to finance the construction cost until we reach a certain milestone in the construction and the amount of expenditures that we've incurred, and then they convert it to that long-term loan with that interest rate. And that happened on this project in November 2023, another year later. And our first loan payment on that loan will become due in our in July 2024, which is fiscal year 25. So you can see it takes about 3 years from the time the appropriation occurs and the contract is signed to our first loan payment. And so we're going to use that assumption going forward with the funding any additional projects that we come forward with for your approval. And so, for example, the nitrogen removal and headworks improvements project, the timeline, projected timeline for this will be, we come forward with the appropriation request in April of 2024 with our proposed capital improvement plan. We anticipate then about a year later signing a construction contract because we have to put together the bids. These are very complicated projects, very involved projects. It takes time to put together the bids, get the bids back, evaluation of those bids. So it takes about a year. And then a few months later, September of 2025, which now we're into fiscal year 2026, the construction begins and we sign that interim loan with the Mass Clean Water Trust. And then about a year later, if all goes well and the project proceeds and we're spending the money, it'll get converted to that long-term loan in 2027, and then we'll have our first loan payment in July of 2027, which is the start of fiscal year 28. So the budget impact will be felt initially in fiscal year 2028 from an operational standpoint. So again, that's the timeline we're assuming that we're working with in these projects. So here's what we can do. Right now, line 1 illustrates what our projected project management cost is on an annual basis. This is the staff and that we have in-house to manage the implementation of this program. Construction inspectors, designers, project managers. It's about a $3 million annual budget, salaries, benefits, and operating expenses, and any capital outlay we need to support them. And then we have those cash-funded projects that I showed you in the first slide that were highlighted in green that we plan on paying with cash. And then we also have about $1.7 million of already issued loans that we have to provide for. Those are going out 30 years, some of them 20, some of them 30. But currently it's about $1.7 million in authorized and issued loans. And then our projected future debt and what those annual loan payments look to be are illustrated in lines 4A through 4L. We currently have about $15 million of projects that were authorized in fiscal years 23 and 24 that we have not borrowed for yet. We plan on borrowing this year, and the annual loan payments are about $1.1 million, and they'll begin in 2025. We have the Centerville Sewer Expansion Project, which is before you. This has been, the scope of this project has changed. It'll be coming back to you for approval, and if you approve it, that project has been listed on DEP's 2023 intended use plan, so we are eligible for a principal subsidy on that. It's a $30,900,000 project. We will only have to finance 23.18 because we got a 25% subsidy from the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, and that 3.3% subsidy being a disadvantaged community. So we anticipate financing $23.18 million through the trust, but we don't believe, but that loan, we won't feel the loan payment impact until fiscal year 2027, which is about $1 million a year. Then we have the nitrogen removal project, the Headwards project. Very large project, in excess of $100 million. We're going to have to break that into 3 loans. That's why I've labeled them here 1, 2, and 3. $50 million in 2025, financed through the Mass Clean Water Trust. First loan payment impact will be in 2028 at $1.8 million. The second loan for that project will be, the budget impact will be felt in the following year in 2029, and the third remaining loan for the balance of the project of $9 million we'll have to issue likely through a general obligation bond because we're capped out at our financing through the Mass Clean Water Trust with $50 million a year. The other projects that you see here, we anticipate all having to do through a general obligation bond unless DEP has more funding that becomes available, because other projects fall off the list. They come back to us and say, hey, Barnstable, we can finance more than $50 million for you. But right now we're going with the assumption that they will be financed with general obligation bonds. And you can see the fiscal year that we anticipate the budget impact from those loans. So by fiscal year 2029 and 2030, we're looking at $17 million in annual commitments between project management and loan payments for this program. And it only addresses the CIP projects listed on the 2025 and 2026 years. We don't have the funding for 2027, 28, and 29. That's the sobering news, but we can do more than half. Here's the funding sources that we've been dedicating, again, many of them since 2010. Short-term rental was newer. That came about a few years ago, and we dedicated 100% of that to this program. That's projected at right now at $1.9 million a year. Traditional lodging tax, rooms tax and traditional lodging, $1.2 million. All of our meals tax goes into here. We started dedicating general fund resources to this program as well. Back in 2023 was the first year. We plan to bring that up to $5.75 million by 2025. Assessments will start kicking in 2025 as Strawberry Hill Road goes on, but we're not going to receive a significant amount of money from sewer assessments yet. It's going to take a while to build out the main infrastructure. We won't have a lot of property abutters tying in immediately because it takes time to build that infrastructure, and the assessments are capped at $10,000. Some of these initial assessments are actually going to be less than $10,000 because they're main trunk lines, and they're going to be more in the neighborhood of half of that. Like Strawberry Hill Road, we're estimating will likely be half of that. Soon as people start hooking into the system, we'll start seeing some additional user charge revenue, and some of that user charge revenue will be dedicated to this program. And then we have fund income, which is investment earnings that we earn on our cash deposits. And so our total resources right now are about $10.4 million. We're projecting in 2025, and they will grow out to about $15 million by 2032, and just over that, 2033 and 2034. You compare that to the total commitments that I just showed you, which grow up to $17 million, exceed $17 million by 2029, and our commitments start exceeding our resources by $2 million a year going out, and the remaining dedicated resources that we have been accumulating all these years starts to go down, and we start eating into those reserves to keep this funding going for these projects. One of the topics that our subcommittee brought up Tuesday night was what's the debt load impact to the town from issuing all this debt, which was a good suggestion, so I wanted to illustrate what that looks like for us. So right now, at the end of 2023, we had $112 million of outstanding debt. We plan on issuing $14.6 million of new bonds in 2024 for projects that were previously authorized by the council, and $15 million of previously authorized CWMP projects by the council, about almost $30 million in new loans. And then in 2025 through 2029, we have the capacity within our capital trust fund, which funds our general fund capital, to issue about another $16 million a year for the next 5 years in new loans. Then in the enterprise funds, this will all depend upon impact on rates, but we anticipate issuing on the next line that amount of loans for our various enterprise funds. The $50 million you see in 2026 includes a significant water, I believe it's a water enterprise fund project. And then we have the CWMP projects, which I illustrated on the previous slide, coming on our debt load in 2026 through 2029. And then, of course, we have what our retired debt, our projected retired debt is for the general fund, enterprise fund, and CWMP, because we're paying off a portion of these loans every single year. But you can see our debt load increases from $112 million currently to over $400 million by 2028. It's a significant increase. But it's a significant program. And this is how you finance it. You finance it through loans. just like you or I would finance a car, purchase of a car, or a purchase of a house. We have to finance our major capital projects with loans. We do have a debt limit capacity by state law. It is equal to 5% of a community's equalized valuation. The last time our equalized valuation was calculated by the Department of Revenue was 2022. They calculated our town-wide equalized valuation at $18.2 billion. We expect that to increase to close to $24 billion when they come out with the number for 2024. It's pretty close to what we end up assessing the town at. They make some minor modifications to it. So our debt capacity right now at 5% of EQV is $911 million. So we're just under half, a little under half of what it can be. We project that to go up to $1.25 billion. So point being, we'll still be well below our debt capacity. So we won't be limited by how much we can borrow because of the property value in town and the way the state calculates your debt capacity. Here's the major financial assumptions included. Financial assumptions, there are other assumptions, but the financial ones going forward in funding this right now is that general fund contribution will continue to grow. We'll continue to make those commitments to $5.75 million by 2027 and keep it there beyond that. We're projecting a 1.25% growth rate in meals and rooms taxes. Of course, if we do want to talk about any regulations in regards to short-term rentals, we need to think about the unintended consequences on this revenue source and funding, how it might impact the funding of this program if we did do something. We are projecting 15.3% subsidy on the projects financed through the state trust going forward. You've probably heard the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund cannot continue to provide a 25% subsidy with the amount of money that they're earning. They're estimating that's going to drop to 12%. So we add that with the 3.3% we receive for a disadvantaged community. We're using 15.3%. The rates that we finance the loans for through the trust are going to be 1.5 to 1.7%. The reason why it goes up above the 1.5 is when you borrow money through the trust for more than 20 years, they're going to add a few basis points to that because it costs more to borrow money in a longer period of time. We just issued our first 30-year loan ever through the trust in November, and they charged us 20 basis points more than what we normally would pay. But for the cash flow, we have to do 30 years. So we're using 1.7 in any loan that we plan on amortizing for over 30 years. We have that $50 million cap that I talked about, that limitation as far as financing through the trust on an annual basis. 4% financing rate, again, on the general obligation bond. Loans are going to be amortized over a 20 or 30-year period. Most of them are going to be 30 years, again, to manage the cash flow. And we project a 3% return on fund income currently, or the return we get on our cash deposits. So to recap, all those projects that you saw on the first slide for the capital plan for 2025 and 2026 can be provided for with existing resources. Those listed on 27 through 29, we will need to identify additional resources. The estimated annual loan payments, once they're all issued for those projects, are expected to be about $11.5 million. So that's our annual target, is to find $11.5 million more in annual resources. So here are some of the potential resources that currently exist. Governor Healy recently proposed the Municipal Empowerment Act. It is not law yet, but it is proposed. It will go before the legislature for their approval. All of these items will require local acceptance, or in our case, by the town council. They didn't give us any money, but just gave us tools. The first increase is the local meals tax from 0.75% to 1%. That would, increase your meal, $100 meal bill by 25 cents. But the additional revenue generated from that on an annual basis, based on what we're currently taking in, would generate about $670,000 more per year for us. They're also allowing us to increase the local rooms tax from 6% to 7%. That'll generate about another $500,000 if we were to implement that. And then everybody's favorite tax, motor vehicle excise, they're offering us the opportunity to add a 5% surcharge on that. That would raise about $450,000 a year for us. But all of those have unintended consequences that we need to think about if we were to implement them. Total, about $1.5 million, a little more than $1.5 million in total. That could fund about another $30 million loan. That's about all it can do for us. The other option that we currently have, existing legislation is out there. We've talked about this in the past. We can revisit this. It's going to our voters and asking them to implement a water infrastructure investment fund. This works very similar to the Community Preservation Act, where you're allowed to add 3% additional surcharge on every real estate tax bill. That currently generates about $5 million for a community preservation fund. So this could generate $5 million a year for us to fund this program, and that could finance about $85 million in additional borrowing. And then, of course, there's the debt exclusion override, which we've talked about in the past as an option. Currently, every additional $245,000 in an additional tax levy adds another penny to the tax rate. To exclude $11.5 million of annual loan payments from the tax levy limitations to Proposition 2.5 would add about 47 cents to our tax rate, our current tax rate. And then the median tax bill impact of that is $23 per month. Another option would be to reduce our services to the community and redirect the funding from operations into more loan payments every year. In addition to cuts to services, that reduces your budget flexibility because you're tying dollars up into fixed loan payments. So we have to think about the unintended consequences associated with that, and also the cuts to services. And then we could do a combination of some of these or all of them. But those are the tools that we currently have available at our disposal. And that concludes my presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? A lot of information here. You have a terrific presentation, very well organized. Councilor Schnapp.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Mark. Lots of information, as said. And I even went back a little bit to some of the previous presentations you've made to the council, and I have two main questions that came out of that review. One is, since the last time we looked at this, which was, I think, in April of last year, we're now estimating a 25% increase in project costs. And yet it seems like we've been able to absorb those costs so far. So I'm kind of surprised. And the other is that we won the lottery last year with the school aid under the Student Opportunity Act, where we made at least the decision last year to allocate another $2 million out of the general fund to capital, right? Yes. And so the earlier assumptions were that in 2025 we'd be dedicating $2.25 million from general fund. Now it's $4.25. Given that we a couple of months ago directed staff, the town manager, to look at changing the ratio on the health insurance benefits. Do we have any idea if we're going to require additional general fund money for that? I mean, we make these assumptions and then they're kind of stuck into these models, but I wonder sometimes if we're confident that we can leave it there. Or will there be other expenses on the operating side that we might have to be making some choices?
Our plan right now is we can continue to invest those additional general fund tax dollars that you see here on the fourth line down, currently at $4.25 million, and grow it up to $5.75 million, and still plan on funding the change that we are proposing in the health insurance without compromising that. So that's our plan right now.
Is your mic on?
Sorry. That also assumes allocating that additional $750,000 every year to this.
For 3 more years, we plan on doing that, 25, 26, and 27, till we get to that 5.75. Yes.
Okay.
We still, that is still our commitment, so that we can continue with implementing this program, at least for the next 2 years.
And my last question has to do with the conversation that we've had several times up here, is whether the town would move toward a flow-neutral policy at some point to reduce that cost of borrowing from that 1.5% to 0%. Are we making any progress in our analysis of that?
I think we discussed with leadership about coming to June, to the council back in June to talk about that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It's not dead, it's just waiting in the wings. Other questions? Council Levesque.
Councilor Clark's not here tonight, so I was just going to ask that if this is going to be placed on the website.
Yes, sir, it's already there.
Okay, thank you.
In a tribute. Good for you. That was great. Anybody else? No? All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I've just got a few quick things. I want to say I've had a great response to our new meeting time at 6 o'clock, and especially to agendas being posted on Fridays preceding our meetings. And so I wanted to thank everybody for their support and their feedback on that. The information regarding the town council subcommittees I spoke about recently may be ready for release at our next meeting, and populating these should begin probably early March or shortly thereafter. It's a work in progress. I think they'll be successful in fulfilling their missions. The idea to create a consent agenda is still under review. It's not dead. It's just still being considered and mulled over by legal and town clerk. The appointments committee is going to meet, for those who are on that, February 5th at 6:30 to elect a chair and a vice chair. They don't have another agenda, like they're not going to do interviews that night, and then they'll decide on meeting times and going forward and pick up on filling vacancies. We have several vacancies out there. And I just want to say, at the MMA convention a couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of talk. I think we were in the minority, speaking of local tax income and things like that. A minority town and or city in the Commonwealth that does not have cannabis sales and any benefits thereof. That may occur, and I know there's been a lot of changes in that, which we can look at. But we do have an area that's already zoned for that. We just don't actually, never voted to go in that direction. But of the communities that do have it, it is a heck of a source, probably equal to or more than what we're counting on short-term rentals and other local taxes for. So it might be coming up for discussion at some point in time in the near future, once we look into all the things for that. So it's just out there that a lot of people, when we were sitting in session, said, hey, look at what they're doing. Look at all the money they're getting, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, ka-ching, ka-ching. So there we go. All right, we'll get into old business. Anybody have any questions on my little blurbs there? Okay. All righty, so first we have old business, and Karen's going to present this. Is the button on?
Now it's on. Okay. Karen Ober, Town Attorney. So this item, so the town ordinance sets the start time. I'm sorry, what?
I think we need to read the motion before.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Go right ahead.
Okay, you want to do that, Councilor Chen?
This is a Matter of old business requiring a public hearing and a roll call majority vote. Item number 2024-092, order waiving the provisions of Chapter 220, Article 1, Section 2020-4 of the Code of the Town of Barnstable for a period of 6 months.
I need a
As-
second.
Second.
Okay. Public hearing is open.
Okay.
All those in favor of opening the public hearing? Thank you.
Okay, so the town ordinance sets the start time for council meetings at 7 o'clock. This item would waive those provisions for a period of 6 months through August. And then if it's a change that you're looking to make on a more permanent basis, we would come back with a proposed amendment to that ordinance.
Any discussion? Councilor Tamish.
Can we move it forward prior to that? Or do we have to wait till the end of the 6-month period?
To do the amendment,
Yes.
you could certainly do it before the end of the 6 months.
Okay.
Sure.
I think she was giving us plenty of time to figure out if we
Like a trial
want to do
period
this
to
or
see
not.
how it
Little
works.
trial period.
Yeah, but up to you.
Yeah. It has flexibility built in. We can't go any longer, but we could do it shorter. We'd have to re-up this thing if we had to extend it. All right, you guys want to vote? So this, close the public hearing if there's no other, are there any comments from the public about the 6 PM? We have a thumbs up from those who are still here.
I think that has to be out loud.
That's positive. All right, so we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to vote on the item. And this is a roll call majority.
Councilors, Burdick,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Hamish,
Yes.
Turkelson.
Yes.
Approved unanimously. Thank you all. That's terrific. We have appropriation loan order in the amount of $30.9 million for the purpose of funding sewer infrastructure improvements. This is a public hearing. We want to open this public hearing, and we want to continue it to March 7th. So we need a motion to do that. In a second? All those in favor of opening the public hearing and continuing to, I have to read the, oh, man.
It's just a motion to open and continue this item to a public hearing.
Yeah.
To the March 7th meeting. And the reason for that is there was a problem with the advertisement for the public hearing. So to make sure that there's no issue with bond counsel, we're moving the hearing to a date that will be properly advertised.
Okay, so we do need a roll call, 2/3 vote? I would do the roll call. Okay.
Councilors, Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Hamish,
Yes.
Turkelson. Yes. Burdick,
Yes.
Penn, yes.
Thank you. Council Starr.
Thank you, President. Ben. This is new business, may be acted upon with a roll call majority. This is number 2024-094, authorization to contract for and expend an energy efficiency and conservation block grant from the United States Department of Energy, Office of State and Community Energy Programs in the amount of $76,690 for the purpose of funding energy-related expenditures.
Second?
Greetings, Town Council. Sean Hogan, Environmental Sustainability Manager. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the EECBG program. It's a horrible acronym. I feel like every time we talked about it in the office, we added a letter. Sorry. All right. The EECBG program is a pot of money that's been set aside by the DOE for use by the town of Barnstable for any energy efficiency programs we might decide to use it for. So it can be used for something like solar panels, fleet electrification, heat pumps, and the like. We will make a recommend. Some of it's already been designated for an electric vehicle, which we discussed at the previous meeting, because it stacks very well with grants from the state for that particular purpose. So, any questions?
Questions?
So-
Council Starr.
Mr. Hogan, thank you. So most of this is going toward one vehicle? Or toward, that's a chunk of it?
A chunk of it, probably about 20 grand or so, will go towards a vehicle. We'll make a recommendation to the town manager on what we want to use the rest for. I lean towards more fleet electrification because it lends itself very well to that, and because the DOE has that as a specific activity that they will allow. So it's something that they will understand, and we don't have to persuade them.
Okay, thank you.
And it's also worth noting that we have a number of cars that are up for lease renewal, and even setting aside the environmental benefits, using it on the cars would save us those lease payments for the vehicles.
Other questions? So I just have a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
So to, let me see, to contract for and expend, so you can do both things without having to come back to us. And is that kind of all done in one effort, one process?
The way it works is that we will make an application to the DOE. I mean, the money has been set aside for us, so it's not going away, but we will apply and say, we want to buy a car. Here's the car we're going to buy. And they will say, go nuts. And then we will expend the funds,
Okay.
and then they will reimburse us for it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Turkelson.
When we decide to dispense the funds, will you be letting the residents know where these monies went and for what items that you decided to dispense them for?
Yeah, we can do that.
Great.
Yeah.
On the website. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Okay, it's a roll call majority. Vote to approve.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Councilors, Levesque,
Yes.
Mendez,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
10 yes.
Thank you for waiting so long.
No problem.
Appreciate it. See democracy in action.
All right, next item on the agenda, number 2024-095. Sep.
Sure, thank you. This is an item of new business to be referred to a public hearing on February the 15th, 2024. It can be approved with a roll call majority vote. Supplemental appropriation order in the amount of $45,000 for the purpose of paying operating expenses of the legal department for the services of the law firm Anderson and Krieger, which is serving as outside counsel to the town with respect to Park City Wind LLC's proposed offshore renewable wind project in the town.
Okay, so what we're voting on, obviously.
Second.
Thank you. What we're voting on tonight is to refer this to the public hearing on 2/15, so we're not going to do any questions or deliberations right now. So we need a roll call majority vote for that.
Councilors, Mendez,
Yes.
Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes?
Schnapp,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Turkelson,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
10 yes.
Thank you all. Okay, so I move to go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, since a discussion in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the town and town council. Specifically, the council will discuss litigation strategy with respect to Park City Wind LLC's proposed offshore renewable wind project in the town. The council will not return to public session after the executive session. And I do want to note that councilors Chris Clark, Charlie Bloom, and Betty Ludke will be participating remotely during executive session. And That's a motion. We need a second.
Second.
And we vote roll call.
Counselors, Neary,
Yes.
Penn,
Yes.
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Tamish,
Yes.
Tokelson,
Yes.
Burdick,
Yes.
Crow,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Mendes,
Yes.
10 yes.
Thank you.